What happens when the ego you built to survive becomes the very thing running your life? After more than 40 years forged in childhood absence, the projects, the army, firehouses, trauma rooms, and corporate boardrooms, he realized his bulletproof armor was costing him peace. What followed was a radical dismantling, mind, body, and soul, through jujitsu, ayahuasca, and deep inner work. That journey became becoming the warrior in the garden, a search not for strength, but for peace. Before we begin, if you're here because you're seeking truth, healing, and transformation, make sure to subscribe and share this episode with someone who's ready for their own awakening. Every conversation here is meant to inspire your journey and remind you you're not alone. Welcome, Eric. Thank you so much for being here.
Awesome. It is amazing to be here. I've been looking forward to this, so
Yeah,
it's
me
cool.
too. Me too. Before we get started, I just want my audience to know that Eric is a fellow veteran, and I'm grateful that you decided to join me on this journey here. And this book that he wrote, I'm going to share that right now. There will be a link in the description for you. We will be talking about that. And just excited and grateful to be able to get to know you a bit better from even beyond the book.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
Get to know the spaces in between the
e-
lines of
exactly,
the book. Yeah.
exactly. So ready, set, go. Okay. Eric, can you go a little deeper into what you've lived through and how that experience shaped the work or perspective that you bring into the world today?
Man. Yeah. So, God, I
Where
don't
to
even know
begin?
where to. Yeah. Give me the first part of that question again so that I can kind of
Well,
really
the
give you
beginning is
the.
the story, and the story
Yeah.
is what you shared in your book. So start somewhere in there.
Yeah. Let me kind of I'll give you where the book came from, how it started first, which is kind of like, will take me back to that beginning because I wrote it backwards. Most of the stuff that I remembered, is obviously the newer stuff. And as I wrote, I kind of went backwards all the way back to the beginning. And it didn't even really, the information didn't even really hit me as anything more than information until then I read it forward
Mm.
and I kind of read the entirety of my whole story, and I was like, "Holy cow! Like this is, it means way more to me looking backwards because my whole life I don't think I ever took, um, man, more than 5 minutes to look backwards. Just not. It just was never in my was kind of never in my vocabulary to look backwards. The windshield is bigger than the rearview mirror, they say. So I was always looking forward, and then so the first time that I looked backwards like that, it really kind of hit me how I got here. And even after writing the book the first time, I didn't really understand it, and that's why if somebody bought this book when it first came out, they may have a completely different copy than the copy that you just showed right now that says
Mhm.
expanded edition on it. Because through the writing of the book, I learned probably as much about myself as you learned reading the book as well, because I knew the what's, and I never really stopped to think of the whys. I just knew the what's, and it was from one what to the next what to the next what as I went down the line. And it for me was an incredible learning journey about myself. And looking at the what happened, then going back and kind of looking at the why it happened. And it wasn't until I somebody had recommended a documentary to me that's kind of out there now floating around. I don't know if you've seen it. It's called In Waves and War, I believe.
In
And it's
wave,
In Waves and War. And
IN
yeah,
wave
In Waves and
and
War. I'm sorry.
oh, and war.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Okay.
just the brief premise of it, it's these Navy SEALs that would take this ibogaine journey to kind of heal from their um their traumas that they had. And when they went to this Ibogaine journey, the guys thought they were going to be facing these horrific war, all of these pieces from war and battle and everything else. And um, one of the guys in the video made this crazy statement. He said, would we even have a military if we didn't abuse children?" Right? And I was like, I didn't think that I was ever abused as a child. And then I go back and I read the book after hearing that line, and I say, well, certainly I was not beaten up. I wasn't. There was no physically really traumatic things, but I realized, like, man, my whole life I never heard, "I'm proud of you." Parents never told me. I can never remember my parents going, "I love you." Forget about that. This was 1970 to 1988. I don't know if it was in the vocabulary there of a lot of parents. I never heard, "You're doing a great job." I never heard, it was always, "Hey, you can do better. You need to do better than that. That's not cutting it," right? And it
There was
didn't yeah, that didn't at the time it didn't seem abnormal. Of course, I'm not talking to my friends about this in any way, like saying, "Hey, do your parents ever tell you?" But maybe I noticed that my friends' parents might tell them that or whatever. But it never occurred to me. Then
can I
I
put something
Yeah,
in, Eric, can I put
sure.
something in here? Because this is one of these things where, I feel like a lot of people go through that. I went through something similar where I even confronted my dad when I was in my 30s and asked him if he was proud of me because he never said it. I never heard him say
Yeah.
it. And my dad was in the army for 20 years, but he was a JAG officer. So that JAG is
Mhm.
Judge Advocate General. He was an attorney, for those of you who don't know what that is. But I know it's like this deep, deep, deep feeling of longing for something that you don't even realize that you're missing is with things like not being told that that a parent is proud of you or that they love you. And the thing about it is that that hits that inner child deeply, and that's where we get kind of lost in the process. And then yeah, definitely the 70s and the 80s, that was a time when probably a good portion of our parents, um, were raised to survive. I mean, or our generations, it was all about survival. So you can't survive when you open your emotions up and tell somebody that you love them. It's not
For sure.
possible. You gotta hold that in there so you can just
You
keep
do.
going and keep pounding in there. And
Yeah.
and that leads into obviously more of what Eric has been through because that's about what happened that I see.
Y Yeah, and again, never ever thought about it
Yeah.
1 second. So then you kind of fast forward a little bit, and I get into the Army right out of high school. I get into the Army, and Mhm. Yeah, so fast forward, 17 years old, I go in the Army. College really wasn't an option for me. I get in the Army and I realize, okay, man, if you run fast, people tell you you're great. And I'm like, man, that's awesome.
Yep.
I love this. But if you tell me I'm great because I run fast, if I run the fastest, you'll tell me I'm the greatest. Cool. So I ran the fastest. And then they say, man, if you run in front of those bullets, you're amazing. Okay, well, if I run in front of all those bullets, I'll be even more amazing. And so, and this is all, of course, in hindsight. But so here I am, I'm beginning this addiction to these affirmations and this positive reinforcement and this
Mhm.
success, and so that continued on. I had amazing Army career, and this kind of went on through my whole life. Really, like, um, I never like. There were times when people would be like, "Man, you don't feel like you have any PTSD. Why don't you go to the VA?" I'm like, man, I feel like I'd be lying to the lady if
Yeah.
I told her that. If I went there and told this doctor that I have PTSD, I'm gonna feel like I'm lying because if any time you had asked me, I'd be like, man, my life is a 10 right now. Like, I have an amazing wife. I'm successful in all these things. My kids are amazing. Like, I I'm hitting on all cylinders. I'm a
Mhm.
10, like on the life scale. I never really realized it. And then in writing the book and kind of being able to reflect all the way back, I'm like, my God, dude, you're a train wreck. You were like a walking train wreck. Thank God I got addicted to like the success, and I got addicted to, achievement, and I got addicted to discipline and these kind of things. And thank God the opportunities for that were there because, I mean, I'm not a mental health counselor. I'm not an addiction counselor by any means, but I would imagine that the same things that can get you addicted to success and to discipline and to that can get you addicted to drugs and gambling and all
Mhm.
these other things. And thank God I had a copious amount of opportunities for success there that it it kept feeding my ego, and my ego was able to kind of eat those things and move me to the next one and the next one. And even if I failed, I would I would fail up. It was one of my favorite terms is
Mhm.
fail up. Like people say falling down, I was falling up. I went broke and $2.2 million in the hole. And on the other side of that, I bought a, $600,000 house a year later and had, an amazing job, a better job
So
than the one.
you're the one with
So
all the
it's
secrets on how
always,
to do that. Okay.
yeah, it's just
Yeah.
miraculously I'm failing up. And so I'm like, man, thank God those things were there because only in hindsight I realized, like, God, man, you were teetering on the brink of disaster. And looking back, I realized the little hints of that were, man, I thrived in chaos, loved it, but I couldn't
So
sit still.
let me
Like,
ask you a really quick question because
go
this
ahead.
is you've gone through a lot. Your childhood in and of itself was, as I mentioned in the intro, was like, living in the projects is not everyone's understanding, right? And so you have that. You've experienced pieces of not feeling uh loved, and
Hmm.
then you move in probably because of all that stuff. You move into the army, and then you're moving into yet another, a go to kind of experience of being a
Yeah.
firefighter. And then from reading in the book, which I'm going to bring some of the stuff out, you also shared your
Hmm.
experiences as a nurse doing all kinds of, crazy missions and stuff like that that most people wouldn't even get near. What did
Yeah.
all that feel like inside for you? Like, what drove you into do you remember the feeling of that, of how that,
So I remember, like, I remember watching this episode of Mr. Rogers. Remember Mr.
Mr.
Rogers?
Rogers made you do it? Okay.
Yeah. And I remember this episode called The
Okay.
Helpers. Like, I must have watched it like 10 times when he talked about, when things get like hairy or things get bad, you need to look for the helpers. And I don't know why. I just remember this from being a kid. I don't know if I was maybe 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, but I remember Mr. Rogers talking about
Mhm.
these helpers. And it's police and firemen and nurses, doctors. These people are the helpers, and the value that when he spoke about them, the value he spoke about those helpers was like really kind of hit with me. And I was like, I don't know if subconsciously that is what's it meant, be a helper. So the whole time was all
Yeah.
about helping. It was about helping people because when and we know this from just common psychology out there, helping somebody, sure, it helps them, but it also helps the person that
Mm.
helps them just as
Mhm.
much sometimes. And so it's like a double, if your ego's running the show, it's like a double serving of food, right? I get the positive uh feeling of helping the person, but then I'm also getting the piece for myself that, hey, I'm a helper,
Mhm.
you know? And so it's just, it would feed that need to do, okay, if you did this time, next time you need to do more. It needs to be more. But then that probably in hindsight goes back to if you got a B on my report card when I was a kid, well, why didn't
Right.
you
Well,
get an A?
you were just trying to make
Not, hey,
somebody
great
proud of
job.
you. You pushed so hard. You were everything you did was to make your dad proud of you or somebody proud of you.
Yeah. Or yeah, even and even if I wasn't thinking about that, it was, hey, I'm going to be the
Mm.
man. You know, I, I'm
So
gonna
it was
be
was
that
it like
guy. When
proving
people
yourself, or
talk,
was it
I'm gonna
more of
be
a
that
like
guy.
an adrenaline type of thing?
I think it was a double. I think it
Yeah.
was a double. I think I learned early on that it was
Okay.
both.
Okay.
Like I said, that
That's
I could get, you know, I could get the satisfaction of
mhm.
helping you, right? You you break down at 2 in the morning. You call 10 people, 10 people don't answer. You call me. I'm on my way. 30 seconds after. You know, I'm helping you,
Right.
of course, but I'm also getting the affirmation from me that yeah, you're doing this. You're the one
Yeah.
that's going there
Yeah.
to help. The other people aren't. So it's kind of probably in hindsight healthily
Right. I was
unhealthy.
just gonna
You
so
know,
basically what I was gonna say that something similar to that was even a good thing can go overboard. Like
my favorite term I didn't use it in the book purposely, but when I talk about the book and when I talk to people, functionally dysfunctional.
yeah. Yeah. And
It was highly functionally
right.
dysfunctional,
That makes a lot of sense, and the thing
which
is, like, the truth behind the phrase "everything in moderation" tends to lead us back to that center space instead of going all in this way or all in this way, and when we do that, we kinda self-implode and then become functionally dysfunctional, right? Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
that's
he's a really crazy. And like I said, this whole thing for me has been, you know, I'm a firm believer that whatever you believe in, probably we're not here by accident. The soul is released down here to the earth with a distinct purpose. You don't know what it is, but whoever put you here knows what that purpose is, and laid before you is a path that you can either follow or you can fight it. And if you fight it, it's probably much harder than if you follow it. And there's things you have to learn. Yeah, there's things you have to learn along the way. And a lot of those, they're not instruction, they're
mhm,
experiences that you have to learn.
absolutely.
And those experiences create your personality. And from those experiences, your personality grows. And for me, my personality became one that thrived
Right.
in chaos. I thrived in chaos and I sought it out and I loved it. And one of my favorite things was in a trauma room at the hospital when you know, it'd be the worst thing you could possibly imagine that was going on. And everything around would be
Mhm,
chaos. And I took great pride in being the
mhm,
calmest one in the room
mhm.
all the time. I bet if you felt my pulse, it was 60, 58. Everybody's else is at
Yeah,
120. And the story that I tell in the book about my daughter having the
mhm.
seizure on the airplane, that was kind of that was the holy, you
You can
know,
say it. You can s
holy cow moment. Like, yeah, yeah, is the holy shit moment where you're like, whoa,
right.
that's
Yeah,
maybe too cool. That's maybe too
yeah.
cool under chaos, that I was able to slip into that mode and drop all of that emotion just to, again, for the ego to drive that need to be the man and to be the one. Okay, everybody else is going to fall apart,
Can you
but I
sh
won't.
can you
I'll
share that
kind of
story? Can you
see
share
this
that
through.
story with the audience?
Sure. Yeah, flying home from Boston. My youngest daughter was maybe 18 months old at the time. She had gotten sick in Boston, just your average little kid cold, runny nose and cough kind of thing. And my wife and other two kids were in the three seats on the other side of the aisle of the airplane, and me and my daughter were on the other side. And she started to get cranky, started to get kind of fidgety, and I picked her up and kind of was holding her in my lap and trying to calm her down. And all of a sudden, her eyes kind of rolled back in her head, and she went stiff, And I was, okay, something's not right here. Boom, there goes the switch. Time to go into be the man mode. Very quickly, in seconds, I knew that okay, I'm going to right now. I have to make the decision. Do I want to stand up, cause a commotion on this airplane, cause all this chaos, or do I just want to handle this right here? And it's very easy for me to say, okay, nobody on this airplane is going to do anything any differently than I'm going to do right now. So it's just better to get to work right now and avoid all the confusion and chaos. I'm going to try to blow air into her lungs. It didn't look like she was breathing. I'm going to take a, breath. I'm going to try to blow air into her lungs. If I can blow air into her lungs, she's probably not going to survive. She's probably going to die here on the airplane. And if I can't blow air into her lungs, well, this is a good sign because she's probably having a seizure, a febrile seizure. It's probably kind of okay, no problem. Took the breath, went to blow the breath in, couldn't get any air in, tried again, couldn't get any air in. Cool.
Cool.
Now we're down this
I
piece of
like
the
the
algorithm.
steady, the
Yeah,
steady.
I know
Yeah,
what we're
not
dealing
cool.
with. Yeah, I know what we're dealing with right here. We're probably dealing with a
Yeah.
seizure, no problem. Grabbed the Tylenol, grabbed the Motrin out of the diaper bag on the floor, took my seatbelt off, stood up, walked to the bathroom casually and calmly, got to the bathroom where there was more light on the plane. Start to splash water on her, gave her some Tylenol, some Motrin, got that in. She started to come around. The seizure started to break. I undressed her. She'd cooled down by that time. And I was like, okay, crisis averted. Picked my stuff up, walked out of the bathroom, walked back to my seat, and my wife was livid that I was walking down the aisle with a baby in a diaper with nothing else on. She was like, what the hell are you doing? And I just kind of leaned forward and I said, she had a seizure, and sat back down. And my wife's face went like completely blank. And I just sat back down. I said, no, no, she's okay now. And just carried on with the flight like it was nothing. But the crazy thing is I was prepared. If 100% in that split second, it went through my mind that, okay, if I can blow this air into her lungs and it's labile like that, we have a big problem. And when I'm on an airplane with limited stuff, it's probably not going to end well. And rather than cause chaos and commotion and everything, I'm going to very calmly at the end of this just walk off the plane with a dead baby. Going to walk to the aid station at the airport, and that's when and we'll take it from there. But everything in between there is not going to help. It's only going to cause more chaos, which my goal is to be calm in the
Mhm,
chaos. I'm not
mhm.
going to add to it. You know, one of my famous phrases when I used to run emergency departments was, the big red emergency faces out on this building. It does not face inside. There are no emergencies inside here. They only exist outside. And so that mentality
Hmm.
was always with me. And thank God it didn't happen. But when I was able to finally sit down and kind of recollect that, I'm like, man, maybe you've gone a little too far here, kid, with this whole, Batman persona here. This is maybe a little too far. But then it was on to the next one after that. So
Wow.
it didn't really, the reflection didn't last long. It was like, okay, on to the
Yeah,
next
and
one.
that
Because
told you
again,
exactly where you were at, and that wasn't a good place for you to be because this is your daughter we're talking about, an 18-month-old. She's your daughter. It's not like
man, yeah,
strategy and procedure and all that kind of stuff. There's emotion that's supposed to be mixed in with this, and it sounds like you didn't even have
not for
that
me,
going
sister.
on or even afterwards. That's
Not for me,
wow.
sister. Yeah, not there. And in hindsight, obviously, writing this book and reading and realizing that, wow, your ego was driving the whole time. And I never really understood what
Yeah.
ego even was. You talk about ego and you think it's this, it's being arrogant, and it's bravado, and it's being like better than everybody else. And it's just about
Well,
survival, right? It's just about survival
yeah,
and success.
and
And,
there's a whole
and
other
so,
level to ego, though, because we come to the earth with ego. The ego is intentional. The ego is there, again, for the audience. The ego is there to protect us. And when it sees something that doesn't match with what's going on in our head, it will automatically put us in a place to do something about it and not do something different because the different part comes from the heart, not from the ego or the mind. So that's
yeah, it's crazy when you
yeah, that's
learn
the
this.
story you told, though. So the
Yeah,
ego was in full charge of that situation and nothing was going to stop him.
100%
Right.
driving
And
the
that's not
bus.
what we
Yeah.
want. So I'm curious, Erik, what was the moment or the series of moments that made you realize that this book needed to be written?
Yeah. So, um, when I've been practicing. So along the way in this, like you said, we have to, when you're put on this earth, you have some kind of mission. Your mission is to learn X, Y, and Z, these lessons you need to learn. And through those lessons were all put in front of me, very clearly put in front
Welcome
of
to
me, you know?
life.
I didn't realize it at the time. Yeah, never
Yeah.
realized it at the time, as I shouldn't, because probably whatever or whoever or put me here is probably a little smarter than me and
Mm,
knows what's going on. So, um, tho just like the lessons were put in front of me, along the way, again, only in hindsight, I realized that all of the fixes for these, things were put in front of me as well. And one of these things that I came into was jujitsu early on in this journey. For some reason, and again, I cannot explain it. All of the things that happened that undid everything that
mhm.
was done, I cannot explain how it happened. I can't explain how somebody asked about ayahuasca. I said, I have no idea how I found out about that. I don't remember hearing and reading. I just heard about it, said, man, this is good. I'm going to go. Jiu-Jitsu, same way, probably I heard it somewhere on Joe Rogan, but everybody hears about Jiu-Jitsu on Joe Rogan and not everybody does Jiu-Jitsu. So what made me go there? I
Well,
have
let me
no
stop
idea,
you there
but
for a s let me
started
Eric, let me
practicing.
stop you there for a
Yeah.
second, because what I
Huh.
remember reading in the book, which really, I don't wanna use the word impress, it, like, expanded my awareness, I loved how you wrote this, was the piece where you had your experience with ayahuasca, which led you to this
Mhm.
point with the jujitsu, and the 2 together gave you the answers that you needed, and I thought that was really profound, so, if you don't mind putting a little bit of that in there
Yeah,
too, because 'cause I'm curious to hear what that was like.
sure. So, and I'll even expand it a little bit bigger on how this happened. So, and again, this is all, I hate to keep using the term in hindsight, but after writing the
2020.
book, yeah, I was able to see that this is the plan that was laid out. So it really undid all of this getting this super strong um ego being in charge of everything that I was doing, the ego just driving the bus the whole time. Never was it the advisor, it was the driver 100%. And but man, I'm so thankful for it, and I'm so grateful that when people use the term "kill the ego," I'm so grateful that especially how you mentioned it right there, how we come here with that, and we need killing your ego is the worst thing that you could possibly do. You need this thing, right? But it was kind of put in front of me to
Mhm.
deconstruct it, mind, body, and spirit, right? This very familiar trifecta that's out there, or trilogy, whatever you want to call it, that mind, body, spirit. Um, So I did. I got this weird calling that you need to go to ayahuasca, and you're not going to do it in somebody's basement in Miami. You're not going to do it in North. You're going to go to Peru, to the Andes Mountains with the Shipibo Indians up in the Sacred Valley, and you're gonna. And you know, I heard about it, thought about it. Within a week, I booked
Iquitos?
it. Done.
Iquitos?
I'm off.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
in
came
in,
this
in
close to
Iquitos.
going
Yeah.
and doing ayahuasca, and then my body was like, "Go, go, go," and then it said, "Nope, you don't need it." I was
Yeah, beautiful place called Etnicus, which was a beautiful place, amazing. Um, yeah, so it was great, great experience. Again, I write about it in the book. It was great. It got me, this piece really kind of is where I first became aware of ego and what ego is and that, and it made me face that. And there was a whole kind of symbolic ego death in there. And I mean, I go into it in the book. I put the notes right after the story. I mean, I consider that day, I know it's November 17th. I consider that my real birthday. Like when I left there after those 3 ceremonies was not the same for me. My life was completely changed and different from that point on. Even my wife was like, "Holy cow, you are not the same person." Wow. Luckily in a good way. Um, and so that kind of understanding the ego in a very primitive way and through this plant medicine that way, then kind of probably opened the pathway for now, okay, now let's introduce him to the body piece and let's get him a body practice where he can really be mindful and really be present and really, you know, and because when, as we know, when you're mindful and you're present and you're fully just intoxicated and worn thing, it's really hard for the ego to be there, you know? And so I started practicing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I've been doing so
Mm,
for 10 years. Um, and to go to your question of why, what made me kind of write this book and look backwards, I was coming up on this mark of ready to get earn my black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which, if you're not familiar with the art, it's one of the hardest martial arts to achieve the level of black belt in. It's like a 10-year journey pretty much, and I trained 6, 7 days a week, and it's very physical, very demanding. I had received my black belt from my master, Daizio Felice, and when I got the black belt, I said, I'm gonna be incredibly intentional about this. I'm not gonna, because my normal would be to make a Facebook post or an Instagram post and hey, let's talk, and I'm not going to do that. I'm gonna take 2 weeks and I'm going to be very intentional on how I unpack it and how I
mm,
think about it. And I'm going to think about the impact that it's had because, you know, I've done that longer than I did anything else in my entire life. And there were some points where I'd pull into the parking lot towards the end of the journey of getting the black belt, and I'd be like, man, I have been here at this time in this parking lot every night for the last 10 years at this time. It's crazy. I can't say that about anything else. It's the promise that I've kept to myself longer than any other promise other than, being married to my wife. Um, I've lied to myself about more things. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to stop doing this. I'm going
yeah,
to start doing that. And, I broke every single one of those promises. And this was one promise that I kept to myself. So I really wanted to
yeah. I
unpack it.
gotta, I gotta,
And in the
I gotta
process
poke
of
you for a
unpacking,
minute. I gotta poke
go ahead.
you. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
how long have you and your wife been married? Yeah.
25 years,
I don't
26
know
this
her,
year.
but that woman is
It's incredible.
absolutely an incredible human being because, when you read the book, um, and you know what his experiences were for her to be able to support you through that amount of time and still be with you. Most women would not do that because that's a lot. I'm just saying.
Yeah. A friend of mine, after he wrote the book, his comment to me was, "The book is good, but really every chapter should have ended with, and Brenda left me."
Yeah. I was like, how did
He
she
said,
not?
he said every chapter should have. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
amazing. She's the most amazing human being
Yeah.
I've
So
ever met in my
kudos to
entire life.
Brenda.
Um, yeah. So in unpacking this whole thing, I was like, I started journaling. Just so happens that my daughter bought, I never journaled before. Just so happens that my daughter bought me this really nice journal, my oldest daughter, just about the time I was ready
Yeah.
to start journaling. And so I started journaling and writing stuff down. And none of the stuff I wrote down obviously is in the book or even really related to a book, but just really. And so 2 weeks turned to 3 weeks, turned to 4 weeks. And during that time, one of my kids had asked me, like, they said, Dad, you had a lot of jobs. It was just some crazy random side conversation. And I wrote them all down in my notes app on my phone. I was writing them all down to share with them, like, yeah, I had all these crazy jobs, right? And I wrote them down with a timeline. And one night at Jiu-Jitsu, I happened to be sitting on a bench looking at that, adding something because I forgot that I had drove a taxi cab for a little while.
Sound like
And
me.
I was like, oh,
Yeah.
let me add this. And a mutual friend of ours, Glenn, was looking over my shoulder. And Glenn's like, "What are you doing, brother?" And I said, "Oh, I'm just writing down I'm adding a thing to a list of jobs I had." And he's like, "Those are all the jobs you've had?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Can I see?" And I showed him, "Yeah, look, man." He looked at it and he's like, "Dude, you
Huh?
should write a
Uh,
book." And that was on October 12th. And I said, no, it's just not my thing. I'm not the book guy. That was that was October 12th, 2025.
2025? You wrote this book in a month because I met you
Yes,
like a month and a half later, didn't I?
even better. So yeah, so October 12th, I told Glenn, brother, I'm not writing a book, man. This is not my style. I got enough to deal with. I'm not writing a book. Um, some crazy thing on October 14th, I woke up in the morning And I was like, you know what? I'm going to write a book. And I just started typing in my notes app on my phone. That was October 14th, 2025. I published the book on November 1st,
And I met you right
2025.
after that.
So I wrote it in, yeah, I wrote it in like, I probably wrote it in about 16
Oh,
days, all said and done, and published it on November
wow.
1st. And that is the original copy that went on. It's got a brown cover on it. It's the original copy that went on
Mhm.
Amazon, and I hadn't even read it yet, but I knew like just publish it, just put it out there because, you know, it was incredibly hard to write. Like it's like I describe it like imagine going to Target and standing in the middle of Target and every 5 minutes you take off a piece of clothing. And when you're first standing there, nobody's watching you. You take off one piece of clothing, there's maybe two
Huh?
or three people watching. You take off another, now there's five or six. You take off another, now there's 10. You take off another, there's 30 people watching. Pretty soon you're naked and there's, 100 people
Yeah.
standing there watching you. This was like writing the book was kind of like that for me. It was very uncomfortable and and I knew that if I didn't publish it, like there was a good chance that maybe I don't publish it. So I
Was it
just put it out
cathartic
there.
for you
And then
too?
I went back
Was
and
it
read it.
also cathartic?
No, it was just it's so
Well, I
easy.
mean,
Just
cathartic is in like
threw
as
it
you
out
worked
there.
through each piece of that, you started to realize things.
No, no,
No?
it was purely vomiting the what
Okay.
onto paper.
Hey,
Yeah. It was just let me put down the what. And then
after
after I
action
wrote it,
review, right?
people started to
It's
tell
like an
me,
after action.
yes, people started to tell me, hey, you wrote this
Yeah,
wrong, you
yeah,
wrote that wrong. There's a
yeah.
typo here, a typo there. I said, okay, well, I gotta fix these typos. So I actually went back and read the book in its entirety. And when I read the book, I was like, oh, boom. It was like,
So, okay, so this is the question. So I'm going to kind of lead you with this question through what you're
yeah.
talking about because when you're moving through the writing, this is what's happening right now. Can you also share what truths or insights started to reveal themselves that you didn't expect was going on?
So what the biggest takeaway for me that I saw, and I don't know if it fits into truths or not, is it strongly reaffirmed my belief that I said, like, listen, you're put
Mhm.
here for a reason and there's a plan. You don't know what it is, but that plan is very well laid out for you. And I never questioned
Mm.
anything my whole life. Like if tomorrow somebody told me, hey, let's go here and do this. Okay, cool, let's go do it. I just followed it. When the door opened, I took it by the grace of whatever. I just went that direction. I'm a real kind of go with the flow, listen to
Nice.
the wind
Nice.
type of guy and
Yeah.
just go that way. And I did that. And every time I did that, things worked out. Every time I didn't do it, it didn't work out. And then I started to realize like, oh, here's just like all the opportunities to get to this point were put in front of you, so weren't all these other things. And so in the entirety, all those things
Mm.
started to make
Mm.
sense to me like,
Mhm.
oh, this is why you were given, like, why didn't I start jujitsu before I went to ayahuasca? Why didn't I, and so these things became, the path was so obvious to me. It was like, oh, wow, look at that was laid in front of you. Thank God you followed the path exactly the way it was
Mhm.
put in front of you. And it removed any doubt in my mind that when somebody says coincidentally, I say, no, bro, no way. Yeah, I cannot believe in coincidence any longer
Mhm.
in my life, you know? And so I saw how
Yeah.
these things were laid out, like like, how did I wind up? I got fired from the hospital or my contract didn't get renewed, whatever, from this hospital as a director there. I was like, "Oh, cool. I got a cool severance package. I'm just gonna chill." Some guy out of the blue calls me and asks me if I want to teach high school. I'm the last guy I would think. First of all, how I even survived high school is a
Yeah.
miracle to me as a student. I think they graduated me because they were tired of me being there. It was like, listen, we can't do 5 years with this kid.
Yeah.
He's got to go. So I'm the last guy you want to teach high school. Some random guy I've never heard of calls me. I don't know how he gets my number And he tells me that the reason he called me is because he got my number from a friend of my wife who I maybe talk to twice a year, and it's maybe at a party and passing very cordial surface level conversation. Hey, how you doing, Letitia? Good to see you. Bye. Boom. You know. And he says, "Oh, I got your number from Letitia. She said you'd be great for this position. Will you meet me?" And I'm like, dude, I don't want to teach high school. It's just not for me. And he said, "Oh no, please come on, can you meet me?" And I said, "You know what? All right, I'll meet you." I showed up in flip flops and tank tops at a Panera Bread, and this guy's in a suit. He's in a suit. He's with some lady in another power business suit. They're both there, and he tells me the thing, and I'm like, you know what? He's like, "What do you think?" He said, "All right, I'll do it." And he's like, "You don't want to think about it?" And he's like, and I said, "No, I'll do it. And if you're lying to me and it's not what you're telling me it is, then I'll just quit. Of
Yeah.
course, I'm not gonna,
Yeah.
it's not a problem. If what you're telling me it is not what it is, I'll just leave, and that's okay." And I go off to teach high school, and how that happens is crazy. Like there's just no way that that
Mhm.
can happen. Then I fast forward from there to this. I'm not a religious person at all. You know, um, as you can tell just from the talking about, listen, when the universe releases the soul here to this defies most religions
Mhm.
out there anyway. Um, but I get this janitor, 78-year-old Jamaican janitor, who comes in to clean my room. Benny is his name, one of the greatest guys. But I'm connected to him because his daughter works for me at
Mm.
the hospital. Neither of us knows it. Neither one of us knows it at the time. But I was apparently, it was very nice to this girl. She talked very well about me. She's a lovely lady, super nice. And so he comes to my room and he starts dropping me these, not even, when you think Jehovah's Witness, we have the thought of them as being very forward and very kind of pushy with their beliefs. This guy was
Mhm.
anything but. He would just drop me a little piece of knowledge that would,
Yeah,
I'd
the
be like, "What?
knowledge bombs.
I need to look that up." Yeah, and I would go and I would look it up and I would search it, and it put me in this, for a while in this crazy rabbit hole learning about historical
Mm.
Jesus.
Mm.
Who was this guy Jesus that he's talking about? We know he was a human that was here. We know he was born. We know he was, we know he died. And what did this guy do? And send me in this crazy historical rabbit hole of historical Jesus because it wasn't really any experience I had with religion, wasn't really, it did never kind of touched me in any way, shape, or form when I was a
Right.
kid or even growing up through. It just didn't never impressed me. It turned me off
Mhm.
more than anything. But this guy was intriguing me, like with the things he would say, and still to this day, I talked to him yesterday, and he dropped something on me that just blew my mind. And through that, he like opened up this incredible, like spiritual
Mm.
piece, which again goes with the mind, the body, and the spirit. And I include in that spirit piece the students at the school and the teaching at the school and these kids taught me incredible compassion and they taught me like a lot of empathy and I learned this from them. Whatever I shared with them, that's for them to tell you, but every day they would teach me something. And and so when I talk about spiritual, people say like, "Oh, you mean like religion? What religion?" No, no. For me, spiritual or spirituality means if you're spiritually awoken, you understand that you are part of something that is much bigger
Absolutely.
than yourself.
Yep.
That's it. I'm great with
Yep.
that definition, and you can take it to wherever you want to take it from there, your own interpretation of it. But spirituality just means understanding that you're just a very small piece of something bigger than
Mhm.
yourself,
Mhm.
you know? And you matter. Of course you matter, but not as much as you think you matter. And but what you do vibrates onto somebody else. And there's that butterfly effect. And but that and I think, I attribute that spiritual
Mm.
piece to him,
Wow.
to letting me see like,
So
wow.
you got the 3rd
And, you know, and
piece.
it was great that
That's where
he
you got the
introduced
3rd
me.
piece. You had the mind,
Yes.
which was the ayahuasca, you did
Yep.
the body, which was the jujitsu,
Body was,
and you had Benny.
I mean, even, yeah. And for body, like even go back to, so the mind piece is kind of funny. It was kind of introduced to me early on after getting out of the military. You know, after, yeah, I talk about it in the book. I never wanted to be an army book because the army was just one small chapter, but I was in Somalia, in Mogadishu during the time when this was, you know, when this was a really big deal. And when I got home from that, I just for some reason sought out, I have no idea why. I was in Providence, Rhode Island at the time, and I saw an ad for it. And they said transcendental meditation. And so I went and just went and took a class on it and learned
Yeah,
transcendental meditation and kind of dabbled in that. So there were pieces of the mind that were put in front of me, just like pieces of the body. Out of nowhere, I started doing cold plunging.
right.
I heard about it somewhere, and I was like, "Oh, cold plunging, that's cool. Seems like a really like tough guy thing to do, and I need to do tough guy stuff. I need to do hard stuff, like to prove." Yeah, and it started from
Yeah.
the place of ego. You know, I fill a freezer, a chest freezer full of water, set the freezer to
Uh,
32 degrees, and sit in this
yeah.
ice for 5 minutes. And I thought I was doing it to become physically tougher. And then, yeah, and then sauna, heat exposure
Mhm.
came into play, and I don't know how this came to me. And I started doing cold plunging and then sauna afterward, which is the opposite of how most of the experts will tell
I
you
was
how to
gonna
do it. But
yeah,
I just noticed that
I
I
was
felt
gonna
better
say the
doing it
Native
that way.
Americans do the sweat lodge. Back in the day, they did the sweat lodge, and then when they were done with the sweat lodge, especially in the winter, they would take a dip in the river for the cold plunge. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
so I start doing it
yeah, yeah,
backwards
interesting.
somehow, right? I
Yeah.
do it backwards, and I feel better doing
Huh.
it backwards. So I have this body practice going on too, and what I come to find out afterward with this, you know, that this practice is not a physical toughness practice. It's not making it tougher. Oh, maybe it is a little bit, but the real benefit that I'm getting from that is learning how to close the loop on
Mm.
stress, right? And so it's a huge egoic exercise where you get in this cold water. It's an extreme stress. Your brain thinks you're going to die. The ego jumps in and wants to take over and tells you, survive, survive,
Mhm.
survive, get out. But you breathe through this breath work, another piece that I learned that fell in front of me. You breathe your way through it. You get comfortable in there. You take your ego out of the driver's seat of telling you to get out. You put it in the advisor seat. You say, "Hey, I hear you, but I'm going to stay. You know, I appreciate the input, but I'm going to stay." You breathe your way through it. You get comfortable. Then you get out. You've kind of had the stress, identified the stress, and
Mhm.
closed the loop on it. And then, but you still have this massive um, rush of adrenaline that's pumping through your body, cortisol that's out there pumping through your body. And then I would go in the sauna afterward and slowly warm up. And as you slowly warm up, you know, physiologically, the cortisol level is dropping, the happy endorphins, the dopamine, and these things are rising, the
Mhm.
serotonin, and you're warming up slowly because it takes a little while to warm up. And so I'm realizing that, oh, you're like in hindsight again, I'm learning how to take my default mode network or ego offline, turn my central executive network on, my, you know, the piece that realized that's not worried about me, that's not worried about bigger things, the piece that's not the wandering mind that's going all over the place. But I did it completely unintentionally. It just, this is the way that it felt good. This is the way. So you have those body pieces, and then this spirituality piece. Like it was never my intention to
Yeah.
become spiritual. I never sought this out. I didn't go, "Hey Benny, come tell me about the Bible." No, this guy would just come and he would tell me, and I would be, you know, I was
Yeah.
interested in what he was saying, and
Yeah.
it resonated. And then, so unintentionally through this, I have this whole mind, body, and spirit awakening. And this brings me to where I'm at now. Like since I've was able to rewrite the book and to
Mhm.
this cover one and be able to say not only here's the what, but here's the why and here's the how on top of it. I only have the what and the why in the book. And man, it's been like this incredible, overwhelming energy in me um, this last, since maybe December, the beginning of December, that man, you are not given this for
Mhm.
accident. You now need to take this information
Mhm.
and share. This is you need to share this information. And so I've been diving into research on this, and man, some days I'm spending, I'm using these tools that I learned that, putting the ego in when it needs to be in, that's helping me to drive through this research and learn this stuff and do these things, but so cognizant of the fact that when I want to turn it off, I can turn it off because I have learned to be the warrior in the
Mhm.
garden now. So I turn that ego on when I need to dive into this research and figure this out and put this all together. And then when I'm done with them, I just put them back in the
Mhm.
advisor seat. And it's super cool to be there and it's fine. And I'm at peace. I've now like developed this a workbook that goes along with the book that has the how in it. This is how I unscrewed myself here. That this 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 personality that was built and this persona that was able to survive in chaos and
Mhm.
thrive there. And now here's how I dismantled it, and here's how it was put in front of me. And my goal is now to put that all together and share because there's a whole group of people out there that we don't talk about very much that are hyper disciplined, hyper successful, hyper driven. They thrive in chaos. But when it comes time to sit on the couch with their wife and watch TV, it's the worst place you could put them. They
Right.
cannot sit still and
Right.
they don't know why. But these people don't seek out therapy because A, they don't think
Right.
anything's wrong with them. They're like, look, they're like me. They're like, I'm
Yeah.
super successful. And even if they do get an inkling that something's wrong, they don't want to change it because changing it might affect their
Mm.
success. So there's that hesitancy to change it and because they don't want to
Mhm.
lose their edge, and they don't know that you can do it without losing your edge. And so through this program that I'm in the midst of putting together in this workbook that should be done have the workbook pretty much done by the end of the month to hopefully be able to share with people and say, look, the warrior is always going to be there. You built the warrior. There's no problem. But now you need to give that warrior the permission to enter the garden and to spend some time in there and to enjoy the peace that you earned because ultimately that's what you were doing. You were earning your peace. Now you need to be able to take the
Receive.
ego out of the
Yeah.
driver's seat. Yep, just move them. Don't, man, please don't kill your ego. Anybody tells you kill your ego, run away from that
Yeah.
person.
Yeah. Yep.
Run away. Get to know your ego really well because it's you. It's what made you successful. It's what kept you alive. It's what kept you survive. But put it in the advisor seat where it belongs and you drive. You're still
Mhm.
the warrior. You're just in the garden now. And now, hopefully, this group of people, will be able to kind of benefit from this and see because, man, I know now immense peace. Like, I don't have any, I love my
Mm.
life right now. Like, I loved it
Mhm.
all along. I never ever questioned, like, man, why did this happen to me? I was always kind of just universally, divinely guided through this thing. And I feel like that
Yeah.
continues on now. And but man, it's like been like this overwhelming energy to okay, now you have to share this. If you don't share this, you've not completed the circle. You've not finished the
Service. It's
mission.
time for
And
service.
so that's kind of
Yeah.
my goal.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my goal now. And service for me, I've always known that the purpose, the meaning of life, when people talk about the meaning of life, what is the meaning of life? Is to be of
Mhm.
service to others. And this goes into
Absolutely.
the spirituality piece, which means your your part of something bigger than yourself. And now I have this incredible breadth of experience that was blessed on me that I can draw from to share
Mhm.
with other people that, you know, the book was the hammer that hit me over the head. Not everybody is going to be lucky enough to have that hammer that hits
Huh?
them over the head. But man, if I can if I can take the hit from the hammer and share it with you before you have to, how
Right.
amazing is that? And you can tell somebody that, no man, you're not screwed up. You're just in this
Mhm.
part of the journey, you know,
So,
and
yeah.
don't
Yeah.
worry,
That's
this is
beautiful, and I
coming,
I have to I have to
and
do a shout out to Glenn because he has a way with doing that with people.
the guy's a freak. He's a
But he's
freak of
so good at it,
he's a freak of
you
nature.
know? Um, one thing, like, all of what you did was such a well-rounded process, like, you went through each thing to like, you can visibly see each thing as part of the process. The mind, you work through that, then you did the body and you work through that, and then you got the whole experience with spirit and you work through that, and then you started to encompass everything into the circle of life, literally. And what that does is it pulls us into a space where we're like, for me it was like separating from other people and identifying and connecting with the truth of who I am. And that's what it sounds like you were doing with this process. And the fact that you it took you, I don't know how old you are. How old are you? Okay, so it took you
55.
54 years or something like that to go through all of that stuff, and it took you what, 4 months? Eh, about 4 months to do to just, I mean, aside from the 10 years of going through the jujitsu and all the that kind of
Sure,
thing, but
sure,
the last
100%.
4
Yeah,
months and the experience with Benny took you into into the spiritual place, which is the truth of who you are. And I want people to hear that that the truth is inside of us. We even successful people are always looking outside of themselves for that success. They don't realize that the success is actually in here. So they're always kind of like grasping and reaching, right?
yeah.
It's you
Me
included,
included.
right?
Me
So
included.
for you to be able to be that, which can hold that space for people like that, and just say, hey, you don't need to push so hard, you don't need to be this all the time, whatever. You don't
Yeah,
have to be that. You could just, you can take all that work that you've done over however many years of your life and pull it down and pull it in and just be in this space right now and appreciate, because you're not going to get what
yeah.
you want from out there. It doesn't work. You're going to get it from in here. And it's just
Mhm.
I feel like it's important to recognize that because I get that journey. I understand that journey. Now mine wasn't a success journey. Mine was more like, how many mistakes can I possibly make to figure out what I'm doing wrong kind of
Sure.
journey. But it's all the same. It all leads back to the same place. Trial
Trial
and
and
error.
error, right?
Yeah.
Just trial and error.
So I'm going to ask you these questions. And the first one kind of, I led into it is with all the trial and error. If you could offer one piece of advice to someone who's just starting to notice that something needs to change in their life, what would it be?
Understand that nothing has happened
Mm,
to you. Everything has happened for you. And once you start to
hmm
frame it that way, that nothing happened to you, it only happened for you, you're able to see, okay, what what was I supposed to be learning from this? Okay. And now you know the now you know the what, and you're starting to see the why now. Now you're seeing the why. Because everything is about why. When we learn about leadership or you learn about management, and nobody, if I tell you to go mop a floor, well, you're not likely to enjoy doing that if I just tell you to go mop a floor. But if I tell you, hey, go mop a floor because we have somebody very important that's going to come and they want to see the place clean and we want to make a great impression on them, and you can be super helpful in doing a part of that because I can't do it right now because I have to go do this instead, which is another piece of that. When I tell you the why, you're going to be
hmm
like, oh, I'm in it. I'll mop the
hmm
heck out of this floor
That's
right now.
huge.
So when you frame it this way that none of this
hmm
happened to me, It all happened for me. Now you can distill your
Yeah.
why from there. And when you distill your why, you see that, oh,
It's
I think it
ah,
has to be
yeah.
clear to everybody that,
Yeah.
oh,
Ah,
this
yeah.
is
Yeah.
why. Okay, cool. Now I know the
Yeah.
why, I can
Exactly.
act. And then you
Exactly.
start to
That's
act,
perfect. I love that.
you know. But
Yeah.
find your why.
Yeah.
Find your why.
How do you define awakening?
Well, it's an incredibly
Well, if you
long.
could do it in a
It's
short
not. It's
version of
certainly. Yeah. No, awakening is certainly not like um the word is misleading. In the morning when we wake up, right? We just open our eyes and we spin our feet to the floor and we stand up and we're awake. The term you're using does not work like that. It takes a very long time. And again, the awakening is that point where something I don't know if you've ever heard the saying that, when you're trying to help somebody and they just don't
Mhm,
want to help themselves and people say, well, he's just going to have to crash and burn and figure it out. When he crashes and burn,
mhm.
he'll figure it out then, you know and this is when people
Yeah.
generally have that awakening, right? If somebody's a very bad alcoholic and they are drinking all the time, and well, when they have this major health scare and wind up hospitalized and lose all their friends and family, well, that's usually when they but that awakening is just again the process of something happens to force them to look
Mhm.
at the why. Why am I here? Okay, now that's finding your why. So an awakening, to me, the process of awakening is finding your why. It's just why did all these
Yeah.
things happen for you? Why were all these things put in front of you? Why did you meet Caroline? Why did you meet this person? Why did you have this experience? Oh, it was leading me on the journey to
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. And it
Okay,
leads you
cool.
back to the this
Because
isn't happening to me, it's happening for me. It comes back right to that.
again, it's that simple. Yeah, I think we complicate it and we want to make it crazy and we want to say
Yeah.
it's this really existential thing that we don't understand and we don't know. But it was something that I I learned this in one of my ayahuasca ceremonies. It was, and I've come to grips with it now that I don't worry so much about saying it to people. But before I'm like, man, people are gonna think I'm a crazy person if I tell them this. But in my second ayahuasca ceremony, I remember the first one was we had to get this whole ego thing out of the way and we had to identify the ego and see it and go. And I remember it telling me, okay, now tomorrow we go to school. Tomorrow we can learn. And then when the second day when it came there, it was like, all right, you ready to learn? And I'm like, I'm ready. And I remember it was like the equivalent of drinking from a fire hose. Everything was coming so
Yeah.
fast. And I'm like, there's no way I can keep track of all this stuff. And they say, relax. Don't worry about it. It's all there when you need it. Don't try to remember it because you cannot remember it. It's all there already. When you need it, it'll be there. And
Mhm.
I left there with the understanding that, oh, I know everything. I I know everything. When I need it, it's there. That's when I'll
Mhm.
I'll pull it. And I got over the fact of sounding like a crazy person when you say that to people. But I truly believe, and you said it in the previous
Yeah.
when you said it's all in you. I know it all. And I wasn't, and probably, now after the fact and being able to think about it, I know that, oh, I wasn't taught it right there. I was just reminded that this was taught to me a long time ago. I
Mhm.
knew it
Mhm.
all from the very beginning.
Mhm.
And that was just a reminder,
Yeah.
and the show of, hey, I'll teach you everything now, and I'll reteach you. But really, you've known it from day one. And so, yeah, that piece that I know everything
It's actually
is
true.
really important.
It's
And I don't
actually
say that, yeah, I don't say it
ego.
from an arrogant
Yes,
standpoint. I
yes,
say
yes.
it
Yeah.
from when the time comes.
You'll know.
I know
You know.
it's because I'm a part of something much bigger than myself that there's no way that I would be put here and have the chance to randomly screw up this giant thing that's going on.
Right?
You know,
Well,
it's not there.
that's true.
They're not going to put that trust that I do
Right.
the right thing and not screw this whole process up. So just trust what you
Yeah.
know and it'll all work out because all of this is done for
And
you.
and you know
There's a
Yeah,
why.
yeah, and, it leads into 100% my next question. I'm just curious how you're gonna answer this one. What do you believe soul divinity is then?
Soul divinity, it goes back to that we are, again, you're part of something bigger than yourself. I saw a video yesterday. So cool that you asked me about this. It was a video, just a regular old Instagram video, and it must have been from a movie or something. And a guy was asking this, looked like a Tibetan type monk in a robe, and he said, "What happens when we die?" And the monk kind of laughed and he said, "We're like a drop of water that hits the water, but we're the water coming up. So when the drop is coming up, that's when we're alive and we're separated from the water. But when we die is when we go back into the water and we become part of the collective consciousness again." And so to me, that soul divinity is understanding that there's only one, like I don't have soul divinity, you don't have soul divinity, somebody else doesn't have soul divinity, because it's all the same thing. We're all sharing the same exact thing. We're all part of the same collective consciousness that is sent out there to have to bring different experiences back. And now that I'm thinking about this, it's crazy that you say is a very well respected black belt. His name is Ricardo Liborio. Um, he's the kind of guy that when he walks in the room and he speaks, everybody listens. He's like the old E.F. Hutton. People stand up and give him his seats, and every time he opens his mouth, something
Mm,
prolific comes out. That is just crazy to me. I really respect this guy. And I remember when I saw him the first time I got my black belt, he told me, he said, "Now your job, your professor, your master invested all his time teaching you everything he knows. And now it's your turn to
mm,
go out, get new stuff, find new things, and bring them back to your master so he can share them with these other people, because he does not have the time to go out and do that on his own because he's busy sharing with his. So he's tasked you with
mhm,
going to do this." And it was kind of like almost like a disciple or apostle type relationship where now your job is to go out and bring
mm.
that back to him to make him better so now he can share. And that's kind of the collective
Yeah.
consciousness, right? It's a small mini microcosm of the collective consciousness. You've been given this. Now go out, have your own experience, and bring your own experience back to the collective consciousness so we can all share it
Oh,
together. To me,
that's
that's
so
soul
cool.
divinity. I don't
No,
know
I
if I,
know, but I've
yeah,
never heard
and
that.
I
I've
just
never
kind
heard
of,
anyone say that. That's perfect.
that just hit me. That
Yeah,
just hit me right there as you said it. But then if I go to what Benny was telling me, and Benny's there teaching me about Jesus, and isn't this kind of what Jesus
yeah.
did with his apostles? He said, "Here's my message." This is what I love about Jesus, is that when people say, "Wow, he was the best Christian," I say, "No, he was Jewish, and there was no Christianity until
Right,
Jesus died."
right.
Just so you know, so Jesus was never
Mhm.
about religion. He was just this super enlightened guy that had this thing. He had a way of that he felt
Yes.
people should live, and whether he was given that message through some whatever way you believe, I'm fine with that. I don't care. But he had the message nonetheless, and he told people, "I cannot go give this message away possibly as well as you guys can. So go out and give my message to everybody." Man, imagine as everybody brought that back, if we all lived that way, if we all lived under those rules that, not the religious rules, but the rules that that guy was saying to love your neighbor, be a good person, be kind, show empathy, show forgiveness, give grace. If we all did that, man, the collective consciousness would
Mm,
be incredible. So once we realize that we are all just disciples of the big collective
mhm,
consciousness, we're the souls that are out there bringing it back to the divine so that we can all benefit from it. And if you structure your life that
mhm,
way, and by the grace of, I say by the grace of God just because it's that famous saying to say it that way, but by the grace of the divine, man, I was thinking about my kids are all my kids are way better versions of me. They took all of the good things from me, none of the bad, and they're twice the
mm,
human that I am. That's the again the collective consciousness, sharing with them, so now they can go out, have their experience, and bring that back to the
Yeah.
collective consciousness. That's
That
all
is
divinity.
we are all one. Is there anything else? No,
John Lennon
hold on a
said
minute.
it. John Lennon said it a
Yeah.
long time ago, right?
What? We are all one?
Hmm.
Yeah.
We're all one,
Yeah.
man. We're
Yeah.
all, and therefore all you
That's
need is
it.
love, right?
That's all there is. Just saying. So how can people get in touch with you, Erik?
For sure. You can find me on Instagram. It's where I like to live, on Instagram the most. It's an easy platform for me to use. I understand it well. Um, my Instagram name is E___ Thor. My middle name is Thor. So you
Okay.
can find me there. I've recently started to dabble in TikTok with under the tutelage of a friend. It is incredibly hard to learn these new platforms at 55 years old like this, but I'm learning them. I have a podcast called the Warrior in the Garden podcast where I find other people that have had similar journeys and bring them on. A mutual friend of ours, Hector. I did one with
Really?
him
Okay.
recently, and kind of to share, yeah, to share. And it's on YouTube. You can find it on YouTube and the Warrior in the Garden channel. Um, and it's just because I wrote the book and so many people said, wow, that
Yeah.
really hit with me. That's my story. Because I think, again, because we're all one, we share the same framework. The things in this book are not unique to me from a
Mhm.
framework standpoint. What's hanging off the
Mhm.
outside of the framework? Sure. It's going to be different for everybody. Yours is going to be different than mine because we have different experiences out there, but the framework is
Yeah.
very similar, you know? So there's so many people out there that have similar stories, but what's hanging off them is different. And so if you can, I can bring those people on, sit down, talk to them, and what's hanging off of the framework for them is the same as what's hanging off for even one person. And it resonates and it gets them to see that, oh, okay,
Mhm.
cool. I'm not all messed up. I'm on the journey. There's an end to the journey, not an end to the journey. There's a reconciliation of this whole journey, and I'll figure out the
Yeah.
why eventually because that person did, and we share a very similar story. So cool.
And
I'm gonna
that
hang
is
on.
why this
You know,
podcast exists, because that story is what connects people. Even though it's not what holds us in, it still connects people. And that's what I love about this whole this
or reminds us that
right.
we're
Exactly.
connected, right?
Yes.
It doesn't connect us. It just because we're
Right. Whether
connected
we know,
anyway, whether
yeah,
we
whether we want to
realize it or
admit it or
not.
not.
These kind of
Yes.
vehicles, yeah, these kind of cool vehicles
Yeah,
remind us that
exactly.
we're
Exactly. Thank you
connected.
for that. So,
Yeah. So I have that podcast, and soon I'm gonna put it all together. I found a cool ecosystem. I'm not gonna
yeah.
really drop it yet. I found a cool ecosystem where it can all exist, and I'm gonna kind of put this program together so people can be a part of this program and learn, you know, kind of be coached through the same mind, body,
Mhm.
spirit way that I was able to
Mhm.
get through this, and hopefully bring them to that same point where, man, that highly functional, highly disciplined, highly successful person that thrives in chaos but can't sit still on
Yeah.
their own couch can finally find a way to convince themselves that they have permission to go to the garden, chill there, and that the warrior is still there. Because at the end of the day, the books say warrior in the garden. It doesn't say, you know, new, soft, warm, cool, fuzzy guy in the garden. It's the
Yeah.
same warrior. It's the same warrior that made you successful and made you thrive and got you through all of, even for you, the trial and error. You don't survive the errors if
Right.
you're not a
Right.
warrior,
Right.
you know? And so you're still that warrior, but you're also in the garden and you can find incredible peace. So that's my goal. It's all
I
developing
I
as we speak,
understand.
it's
I
coming.
understand.
So
So, okay, I have one more question I'm going to ask you, and you've kind of already said it. So, if there's one short little piece you can give as we end the conversation, anything else that you'd like to share with the audience before we wrap up? Just something, a little blurb, like You've already said everything.
Listen, listen to everybody's story.
Yeah,
Everybody has a story.
yeah,
Listen to it. That's number one. Listen to everybody's story, but realize that everything is an opportunity.
absolutely.
And opportunities are not coincidence. They're not by accident. It's put in front of you
Mhm.
for a reason. And when you go through that door leads you to the next door, leads you to the next door, and leads you to the next door. And eventually, if you keep following those doors, at the end of that is the why. So take every opportunity, listen to every story, share your story as much as
Yeah,
possible. You know,
beautiful.
that's
That's
that's my
awesome.
advice
I
to
love that,
everybody.
Eric. Thank you. And Eric, also thank you for sharing your journey with us today. You reminded us that the armor we
No,
build to survive can also be what stands between us and peace, and that laying it down is an act of courage. To our audience, may this conversation remind you that your growth is possible and your soul is always enough. Thank you for being here with us on Awakening Soul Divinity.
thank you so much. It's awesome.
Thank you for being here. Click on one of the videos below to keep going on your healing journey. And don't forget to subscribe.